Hello, everybody. Good evening, and I hope you're all enjoying this cool autumn breeze these days. It's getting down there. I hope you're turning off your ACs. The electricity bills are getting ridiculous, but I am grateful that you're making it out this evening on our virtual talk here at the Santa Clara City Library with Abi Balingit, and we're going to be talking about her hit cookbook, Mayumu, Filipino American Desserts Remixed. But always, I'm going to read a short bio that's been drafted either by her or her publicist. So it's going to be amazing. So Abby is a young, eccentric Filipino American woman behind the blog, The Dusky Kitchen. She made waves during the pandemic by selling pasalubong treat boxes filled with incredibly imaginative Filipino-inspired desserts and donating the proceeds to help those impacted by COVID-19. She has been covered by Thrillist, Eater, Bon Appétit, Food 52, Time Out, Vice, and many more. She is the author of this wonderful book, and she lives in Brooklyn, New York, but she will always be a Bay Area homie at heart. Let's
Yes.
give a warm welcome to Abby. What's up, Abby?
Thank you, Danny. It's very sweet. I know you read it off the back, but it's true. All those words are true.
I'll read it off, but I'll still shout it to the mountaintops. But so Abby, how has this whirlwind journey been for you? What were some of the feelings and responses and maybe opportunities that came up while the book pub date got released and everything that's come before? Because from afar, I'm seeing you just entirely kill it right now, and I feel like, are you still have the energy to keep it up? Yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, the book came out in February of this year, so it's been a few months now. And I mean, energy-wise, like it's always exciting doing events like this, where it's like you get to talk to people, especially library people. I feel like are the best people to talk to because it's like the passion for books is there, and I think that like I'm just like kind of in awe too, kind of like the success of the book, and it's more so like for me, like being Filipino American and everything, especially during this month, which is October, Filipino American History Month, is so important. And it's just wild to see like your books, like my books, sometimes like on shelves where it's like Filipino American History Month, and it's like, and it's just like I live and I exist right now, but like this book is like kind of like a preservation of time and space and memories of like me and my family and our story of like of them coming from the Philippines to here, and so I'm really honored to like be able to talk about it at all with you too.
And it's exciting, and I do mention it, but knowing that you were in reading in this book that you were from San Jose, the Bay Area, but especially San Jose, and the little things you tasted along, and memories of tasting certain things from Vietnamese desserts and foods like the bún bò Huế, from White Rabbit candy, strawberry shortcake, things that you tasted along the way in strawberry shortcake ice cream, and then you implement those flavors and the colors into your desserts. And I was like, wow, what a great way to imbue yourself, the memory and stories of you and your family into the recipes, because I've had Filipino desserts, but man, your Filipino desserts are not only pretty, they look delicious and are delicious. I'm not much of a cook, but I think one of my favorite ones were the non-baked ones I forgot, was the roll-up one in the cellophane. I tried that out.
Oh, did
Yeah.
you try? I guess that one's the pastillas. Did you try?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
amazing.
It was delicious, and I like sharing that with folks. So I hope to try the baked ones, but I'm very scared sometimes of messing it up. But I think my second question is, what I love about this book is that, and for those who haven't read it, please check it out at your local library, or purchase one, because I think it's a great shelf piece. But the fact that you tailored this book in the beginning of the book, how you preface it to anybody who's willing to try it out, even if you have a small kitchen, you're around limited resources, or maybe you have too many roommates. I love that it came out and was birthed in a time that you were living in New York apartments. I've been in a few. They can be cramped, especially if you're sharing space.
Totally.
But I love that you made sure people are comfortable about that, and that anybody, which helped make me believe that anybody can do this. And you don't need a million different tools. Yeah.
Yeah, and no, it was important to me. Even now I still live in that same apartment with one less roommate, which kind of helps, space wise. But it's like I think that everyone's capacity to bake. I know everyone sometimes can be really daunted by like the prospect of it, just because it's very scientific and all this stuff that people say about like baking. And it's not that that's wrong. I just think that it's like if you're focused and you kind of just like set your mind to it and just like kind of but have fun with it is like the most important thing, then you can truly like bake or make any dessert. And sometimes desserts don't need to be baked, as we talked about with like the pastillas is like a no bake dessert. You just like mix everything together and roll it up. And a lot of times, like in Southeast Asian desserts, I will say like a lot of overlap that I see is like shaved ice desserts, and also like the steamed rice cakes that I think are synonymous with so many cultures, especially Filipino, especially Viet, I would say too.
And I think by by helping us feel comfortable at home, and because of my familiarity with the Filipino community, I felt very at home. I felt I was in the auntie's kitchen. I was like, yeah, it's like it's a very colorful auntie's kitchen.
Yes.
Yeah, and vibrant, but it's that welcoming energy that made me believe, one, I can do this too. Two, I can share with everybody. And but what got me to also being amazed, I think in previous interviews I heard that the amazing opportunity that you got through your now agent through social media by just you sharing yourself. I think the most important thing is how we get to know you and how you came through, I guess, the pandemic into this opportunity, but also learning that you wrote this in less than half a year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I started my blog August 2020, and then I posted whatever I was making in that time period. And I think September, my literary agent, reached out to me over Twitter and was like, "Hey, are you thinking of writing a cookbook?" And I was like, "No, like not at all." And then it's like the funniest part of the story is just like kind of falling into this, even though my whole life I've like, not my whole life, but since I was 13, I loved baking. And so it was kind of something where like I think it was the fear of like kind of presenting that to other people that weren't my family or friends was like really, really scary. But I think like once I got over it, slash like even not even getting over it, I just still was afraid but still did it anyways. I think that really made the difference in like my baking and my confidence in that. And so even though I didn't really believe it at the time, I kind of like believed it after some like repeating of mantras and like manifestations that I could write a book. Because it is like it's like even though I wrote it like it was like January into May 2022 that the writing process and the recipe development process was happening, and my cookbook shoot happened in May 2022 as well. And then there's edits for months, and then I think it went to print in November, and then it came out on shelves February. And so it is a very tight time frame if you think about it that way. But like I also was starting to talk about it in 2020, so it was a 3-year kind of like turnaround for sure.
Oh, right. Okay. Very good. That's bringing the reality to the picture.
The reality is 3 years around, but maybe a lifelong kind of thing where all your ideas were marinating for the last 20 years or something. I don't know.
While you were constructing this book, and then just to echo what you're saying is, it is a life. You brought in everything, and especially in the stories you tell us. You've been doing this for quite a while with your family, watching your parents, and then experimenting yourself. When you were formulating, especially when it comes to making a cookbook, when you're putting things together, was it hard to pick and pull what you wanted to pull? How much of it made it into the book, and how much of it didn't make into the book?
Yeah, I mean, recipe wise, I think everything luckily I wanted got in to the book, because I think it was like I was really pressed to kind of like make 75 recipes in that time frame, and I didn't really have, I mean, we had 5 or something like before that. So it was really like having the ideas and then brainstorming prior to that period, and then actually doing it was like full speed, like January until May. But honestly, the narratives and the stories was something that I also was kind of thinking a lot about, of like what is important to include, what is, and it's not even just important, but like what paints a picture of who I am and contextualizes the audience and reader of like, why is this person writing a cookbook, was really important to me, just because I'm not like Ina Garten, I'm not Martha Stewart. I'm like, no one is just gonna buy the book because they saw my face on it. Maybe that'd be really thoughtful if they did. But no, it's one of those things where it's like I know I'm up and coming, and it is really important to me to like put a face to someone who is a Filipino person writing a Filipino story. And I think that's not unfortunately as common as I'd like it to be in terms of like what the publishing space actually looks like. So I'm very grateful again to be able to tell that story on my own terms and in my own words for sure.
I think we're lately been seeing a wellspring of younger chefs and cooks and creative bakers like yourself who are a Filipino American or Filipino diasporic background release books, and I've been buying and collecting them. It's crazy, and then in the way the thought, because though I'm not adept in the kitchen, I'll pick up a dope cookbook if the
Yeah.
design's there, the recipes engage me, photos, the whole nine. But it's this I read it front to back like anything, and I felt so satisfied. And I read an earlier memoir this week by Viet Thanh Nguyen. He just released a memoir, and that was thicker and more deep. But I believe your book, your cookbook, and his memoir, I felt the same satisfaction and cathartic energy that I think I saw myself in that, and also that you got cool recipes to go and it looks so flavorful. I'm like, you say you have a sweet tooth, but I felt like I'm about to have cavities for sure.
Oh,
But here's the thing with those recipes, and also everybody, we're going to give you a chance to throw in your questions. So it's not going to be me blabbing the whole time. We definitely want to get to what you're saying. So if you have a question, put it in the Q&A, and I definitely will try to get to it. While creating the book, also when creating your new recipes, what I found maybe unique is that you do strike a chord of balance from savory and sweet. Actually, you almost make sure that, look, we're going to try to add some umami, the elements of umami in this that you might do a double take on, but it's going to work.
yeah.
And what is your thought process with that? In the I guess the culinary space of a dessert making, right? Because we can only think of one kind of description: sweet, right?
Yeah.
Or semi-sweet, or sometimes bitter, but sometimes when we're talking about savory and funky, it's like nobody really says, yeah, sure, I want that, but reading the directions, what you're describing, it's like, no, I'm placing a hint in accordance of balancing the flavors and the textures that I have in here. So yeah, what is your thought process with that? It's like, these are art pieces, so what is your artistic process? Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Jay. I mean, there's certain things that I feel like for certain ingredients, I will think about. I guess I think about them individually, and then I'll like, okay, like let's figure out like little puzzle pieces of what would work well together as a full concept. And I think for the doughboy chocolate chip cookie, which is the most famous recipe at this point in time, there's like pink peppercorns and soy sauce and like bay leaf butter in there. And it was really important for me to kind of, like there is definitely peppercorn in like a traditional chicken adobo and stuff, and also bay leaf. But I think that it's the elements of thinking about, oh, pink peppercorn is fruitier and more floral, and it will provide like a sense of like a little bit of like a contrast from like the sweetness of just like the brown sugar and like even the chocolate that's in the actual cookie. And so I think there's a certain type of thinking where it's like something is there for aesthetic also because it's pink and beautiful. But at the same time, it's like I think the most important thing is obviously taste. And so I think of each element bringing something to the table and not just being like a throwaway kind of a thing just for flashiness, because there is like a place for MSG and there is a place for fish sauce and certain sweet things. And I think a lot of that thinking comes from a lot of Filipino cuisine that I like enjoy, like just like savory dishes are actually like pretty sweet sometimes. Like the Filipino spaghetti, like the Jollibee spaghetti that you usually get is banana ketchup in the spaghetti, which is sacrilegious to a lot of Italians, but I think that's where kind of like the spirit comes from of just like, oh, this is inherently to me like makes sense just because I grew up with this. Maybe hopefully it'll turn on some more people to think about the inverse of like savory and sweet things.
And how long did you, like during the process of, keeping in sync with your final recipe? Was there a lot of trial error, or were these things that and recipes that you created already and you're like, oh, I know this by heart? you know?
Oh my God. No, there was definitely a lot of trial and error. Sometimes I got lucky and some things just clicked immediately, but I think that the science element of baking kind of kicked me there for a second where, there's the simplest recipe for me, like in terms of like, I've done this before, I know this before, it was the chai leche flan. But it was my dad's recipe originally. And so I was like, oh, this is going to be so easy. My dad gave it to me. And I kind of was tinkering with like the methods of steaming and baking, and there's so much that can go so wrong with something with so little ingredients that I did not think about. And so that took me 12 times to get right, because it was always overbaked or underbaked or something. And I was like, well, that was horrible. Or like, you just don't expect things to like go this way. And so that happened a bit with the recipe testing and development, but that's kind of like the beauty of it, is getting the final product that is actually good because you tested it so many times with other people as well. So I'm very proud of all the recipes, but it definitely wasn't like always so easy, or it didn't, even though I've baked for so long, in my own like kind of like experience, it still was a learning curve even for me.
Thank you for that. I think anything that, especially in this platform, can be new, and
Yeah.
then sharing yourself openly, because it is your creations.
Mhm.
It is your memories. It is the way you were informed, inspired, and brought up. All these things to be placed in this book. I think you definitely gave shared with us, your 100% your authentic self. So I'll have to say, don't worry about all that other stuff. Let us trust the recipes. Um, Also, that, and I think we touched upon it just a little, that while adding, small narratives to your recipes, you do interject the story of your life, in the beginning, middle, and end, and between recipe chapters.
Mhm.
um how was that, divulging yourself in this nonfiction way, sharing your life, and also some hard times and
Mhm.
incidences that were painful to maybe return to. Um, what were your thoughts of adding that to the book? Because those are my favorite cookbooks. There, I can hear some stories, and
Mhm.
there's cookbooks that are straight up just recipes, and
Right.
very little info about the chef or the thought process. But you actually gave us a memoir in in the cookbook. So what were your thoughts with that? And also, did you feel apprehension of sharing so much in this?
Yeah, no, that's 100% so much of what I felt. Like the latter was, I interviewed my parents before starting to write anything about, especially like their lives and like how they ended up in America, especially in the Bay. Because, like without their stories, I wouldn't be here as well. And so it was kind of like a balance of like making sure that, like I was honest with myself of like how I think of like who I am and what I'm doing. Is it's so hard because I feel still so young at heart that I'm like, is this even who I'll think of when I'm 40 years old and I read this again? And I wrote this when I was 25. Like, does this still like resonate with me, or like does this still carry weight? And I think that like I'm really happy to like specifically written down like exactly how my parents met and like how they fell in love and like how they wrote love stories from the Philippines to here, because I knew these things growing up and I knew I've heard stories about it all the time. But I think it's just like the act of permanence and like writing a memoir, I guess, is making sure those things are kind of passed on forever. And I really value that. And there are certain definitely memories in there that were kind of hard to like, even for me personally, that I went through during my time at Berkeley, after and post grad and stuff. It's tough because I think everyone goes through these like quarter life crises or whatever crises in life that you're at, what point in life you're at. But I definitely wanted to make that clear that it's like I'm not a perfect person and I'm not like 100% fully formed, but you can still make something and you can still like produce something that is true to yourself. And that's what I always kind of like hoped with the book, and specifically not just the recipes, they're also like kind of like tangents of myself, but especially the stories of just like community and like making sure the people that I met kind of formed that, even if it wasn't my blood family and stuff, and all the influences that come from that friendship and camaraderie is just like you come out with recipes that are fusions of different cultures. And I think the most important, I guess, like story of all that is that we don't live in like silos, and we live in a vast world where we are kind of fully influenced by so many things. And I hope that came across in the book. I really I hope so.
I think I mean, for those who also read it, yeah, I definitely think that came across. And I think what made it more and much more real is that throughout this time, you did share how you struggled with certain things, not only acceptance of who you are, by family and friends, but also your, where your direction is. I think for a lot of Asian Americans or yeah, people of the diaspora, they get the idea of the pressures to be one successful, two live close to family,
Yeah.
don't move far away, which
100%.
yeah, and three, you know, it's knowing the feeling when it's very much, you know, um, what do I say? When it's about men and women. So the gender identity, and that you know for women there's a certain way you got to go about things, or men, or women facing and men facing. It's like I feel like it. In this time and place, we should be able to do what we want, but also seeing your amazing sense of style and how you emerged, I feel like for us, like we get judged on that, how we don't look like the status quo, or
Right.
or fit into somebody's mold of what a Filipino American looks like, or for me, what a Vietnamese American should do
Yeah.
or look like. Yeah. So how's that have been for you growing up? I mean, I'm sure you are always known to be a person in the kitchen baking and stuff, but what the thoughts? I mean, I want to know what your parents thought when I got not just your job in New York. I got a book deal. you
Oh my
know.
god. Yeah, no, me as a person, as an author now, I guess, it's my parents see me. I think they always knew I was kind of like a black sheep anyways. And so they like I was a lost cause from like the beginning for them to like mold into what they wanted. And I went to business school, I went to UC Berkeley, I did media studies also. And so I think that, my mom was like, oh, I hope she's an accountant one day. And that did not happen as well. I think our parents just want us in a lot of like Asian American like immigrant families and stuff, they definitely want your child to like just be stable and have financial like solvency. I don't know, but like I do think that there's a sense of that tension. I definitely did feel growing up of like, okay, everyone's gonna be a nurse, and then I don't know what's gonna happen for me if I'm not into STEM. But like I think that accepting that was like kind of the case for me helped me kind of like push forward. And like moving to New York was also a big thing just because my mom, like we talked about earlier, is like no one wants you to move far away. I don't know where your parents live right now, but my mom's always asking me when I'm coming back home for real, like living forever there. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, and I do think there's, I love my parents, I love my family, but I think trying to find identity of yourself outside of that is so important if you can. Because I know so many of my friends and my family members who kind of, and this might be resonate with a lot of people too, is just like sometimes they have to provide for their families. They like, they get a tech job to be able to like pay off a house for them or something. And, I really respect what everyone does, to support their families and to like be there for them in emotional and also financial ways. But it is something where I feel like it's a luxury and a privilege to be able to like do things creatively that you love to do. And I work a full-time job right now that's not in food. So I do try to like support and pay my own bills as well. And not to say that, writing and creative stuff doesn't, but I understand like there are two things can be true, that I love to bake and I love writing and I love this. And sometimes, but also sometimes isn't paying everything that I need right now. So I need to like, do this for however long I have to work a full-time job. So I don't know where that came. I feel like I'm just living in like a very Hannah Montana lifestyle right now, but maybe we all are in our own ways as like Asian American child of immigrants or first generation childs of immigrants, children of immigrants.
Yeah, we are true Asians if we're gonna have more than 2 or 3 jobs. So your your parents should be very proud of you.
No, I was like, I don't want to be a girl boss anymore. But like, I know I get it. I get the hustle of everyone having to do what they have to do to enjoy the things that they love in their life. So I get it. I get it.
You definitely touched on something that and I think many of us who grew up borderline millennials or now Gen Z, and some of us who are Xers, straddling Xers, that the fact that we're able to do things that our parents had to do just to survive,
Mhm.
cooking just to survive,
Mhm.
art is just for fun, it's a hobby.
Mhm.
It's amazing that based on maybe the opportunities that we've grasped on, or the people who've offered it to us and shown us the way or nurtured us,
Yeah.
that we get to live that dream. I think it is what, as you said, a privilege to do so. But also that, we have to be proud that we are turning the paradigm and
Mhm.
changing it to a new way of seeing
Mhm.
ourselves, everything, the
Yeah.
breaking those stereotypes and making people believe that, hey, I don't know how many little Filipino girls and boys that are out there. They're gonna see you and they're like, I can do that too.
Mhm.
They're gonna be proud of that, and then who knows where our people can go in terms of how we express ourselves in every place that we exist.
Right.
As you said, documentation, creating these documents,
Mhm.
making sure they live beyond. So you're saying my 25s. I'm 42. Okay,
I
he's
know.
like, hope in my 40s. I'm like, dude, 40's not that bad. So,
I know. I'm like, it's not that far off, really. And
yeah,
I'm 28 now, so I know it's not. It's coming up real soon, but you get me. You get me.
I got you, and also I felt like, but it's okay at any age. People don't listen to what we have to say. I think we're welcome to be inspired and recollect at any point in time. So
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing that what you're doing. It as a librarian, I love seeing diverse shelves. I just love seeing stories that look like us and don't look like us, and making sure those are seen. So thanks for being part of the little pantheon that's growing for that.
Oh, thank you, Danny.
So you know, I feel like I would be remiss to say that now that living in your dreams beginning, and I feel like it's
Mhm.
still the deluge is coming. You still, you
Yeah.
were at the Brooklyn Book Fair, was it?
Yeah, the Brooklyn Book Festival last
Book
2 weeks
Festival.
ago, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and now, and I've been listening to the podcast you've been, and also the YouTube, interviews. So I would like to ask, what's next for you currently? Are you going to be the next Paris Bakery, 85 degrees, Goldilocks?
If
You
I were
know,
the next Goldilocks, that'd be amazing. But no, I am most immediately. I'm actually going back to California for a little bit in November for the Culinary Institute of America's Napa campus. They're doing a Worlds of Flavor conference. So I'm doing a demo. I'm presenting. I'm doing a book signing, which is really exciting because I feel like it's a lot of chefs and like big wig people that I'm also kind of like intimidated by. And I'm like, I'm again like a home baker, self-taught. So it is an honor to be there and to show up and represent and stuff, but it is kind of like surreal to also be in that space. And like I just like can't imagine that like even 3 years ago, I would say. Like, so that's most immediate. But honestly, like I have also, the whole year has kind of been like my Mayumu debut year, and I've been really grateful for that. But it's also kind of like now I'm like, okay, what other recipes can I make? What other things can I do? And so I'm still continuing to like recipe develop and like write when I can for publications and stuff. But I do kind of want to return to form and maybe like blog a little bit more. Like my blog has been on hiatus for like 3 years since I've been writing a book, to be honest.
I
So yeah, like
visited it. I visited it.
it's dusty right now. It's actually just the Dusky Kitchen because it's been on hiatus for so long. But no, I still have intentions. I kept the domain for a reason, and so I will like continue on and like I definitely see myself one day maybe making another book. Who knows? But I never like limit myself to whatever. I know things can happen some way in some form. So keep your eyes out for whatever I'm
Oh,
doing
all four of them and more. So I think one, congratulations on that. Going to Napa, definitely in. I know you're great at networking, so just keep it up. I mean, I'm expecting your own show or podcast or some. It's coming. I don't know, guest spots in a TV show, probably. Who knows?
next. Thanks, Danny.
Because I know you've not just beyond the food, but you worked when you first got to New York in the music industry.
I do. Yes, I still
Uh,
am. I'm still
yeah,
working.
so it's that's also informed your life as well as your crazy sense of style. So how has that been a part of your world?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's hard to imagine the kind of like a life without, I guess, like the music creative part. Even though I don't personally play music, I can't sing. I'm one of those Filipinos, like the abnormal. I was like out. I didn't get that gene, unfortunately. But it is something that like, I think I talk about a little bit in the book as well, of stories of like growing up and like the people that I knew or looked up to were singers and stuff. And like Olivia Rodrigo is really big right now, but obviously Bruno Mars and all these people that have come up in this time. It's like you would see that, and that was kind of the representation that I kind of like saw. And it's not the end all be all to be, like, oh, we made it if someone won a Grammy, but like I do think there's an element of like, wow, like that makes things feel possible for me in whatever field I'm in. And so I kind of see that and sense that in like my own work, even though in food, like I think I didn't actually have a lot of like Filipino industry people to look up to. Like I said, I was like Martha Stewart and Ina Garten, and all these people are white women, and I love them, but like they don't look like me. They're not brown, and I think that now in being in this industry and like meeting more people in food and in media, like I am very much kind of in awe of like we're all kind of lifting each other up at the same time, kind of a thing. And I was just on that panel for the Brooklyn Book Festival with Priya Krishna, Eric Kim, and Betty Ann Carino. And it's like, yeah, these are the people that if I were 12 years old, I would look up to them immediately. And so it means a lot to also be in the same conversation with them and to be that kind of person for hopefully someone who is also looking up to Filipino people and Asian American people who are kind of doing their own thing right now.
It is a great time to, I think, take a risk on your creativity if people haven't. I think there's so many platforms for those opportunities. And I mean the youth, and it's funny because I'll say the youth and I'm looking at you, you're the youth, you're the future, but we're on I feel like we're on the level,
Yeah.
But it's I feel invigorated, and so that's why I stay youthful in my own way, because I felt, wow, if they're continuing to believe in a future, I shall too, and continue to help pave that way or provide a space like what we're doing today. Everybody, if you have a question for Abby, please put it in the chat. I know Alex, I see your question. Letitia, yes, if you have questions, put it in the chat. But while y'all are thinking your questions and putting in the chat, I have a fast 5 with Abby. So these are just quick fire questions. Just answer whatever comes into your head, and we'll let people pop in their questions while we do that. Okay. First one, favorite food spot or meal at the moment or in the past, doesn't matter.
Oh my God. I really like, God, what's it? Okay, now I'm like, sorry, I'm like, okay, there's Valeria's Bake Shop in Berryessa if you're in the South Bay, but my family always gets like the dinuguan with like the pancit, and like their pan de sal is like amazing, and so definitely go there if you haven't already.
Very good. Something that you always carry with you.
I always carry, I guess, like my phone, but I always call him Joker because he's the clown. And everyone like talks about the TikToks where they use these as like joke things, but like this is my life. Like I need him at all times.
I'm glad that was off camera. You brought it. Very, very good. All right. This might answer what you just said earlier. Do you tell your new friends before or after that the chocolate meat, or AKA the dinuguan, is not chocolate meat?
I tell them before. I feel like the euphemism. I think that it tastes so good. Either way, I hope people like it, even if.
Okay, cool. People have tricked me, and well, they didn't trick me. It was delicious. Yeah, they just didn't tell me until a week later at 14. Oh, that's not chocolate. Well,
that's funny. I see them. I see what they're doing.
They did that. Oh, jasmine rice and dinuguan, it's all good. I don't care. Yeah. Jocelyn Enriquez, One Voice, or Julie Plug?
Oh, sorry. What was that?
If you had to listen to one Filipino artist or band, would it be Jocelyn Enriquez, One Voice, or Julie Plug? I don't know if this is more for your older aunties.
I know, now I feel bad because I literally am like, I'm so sorry. I actually I don't want to lie, but like I don't know.
People do not judge her. She's a different. She already mentioned other Filipino adjacent artists, so it's okay.
Okay, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna do my homework after this and like send me a playlist.
I'll send you a playlist. It's all good. It's It's all good. Once you got it, it's cool. Yeah, that was sorry about that. I put you
Oh,
on the
I'm
spot.
sorry. I need to do my. I literally have to like research and do it.
It's all good. And lastly, your favorite Filipino nickname ever for
Oh.
whoever in the family or for people you know.
Oh, it's funny because my sister, her name's Janelle. Lots of Filipino Janelles, but my dad, they do the two syllables, so it's like
Yeah.
Jin Jin, and my dad will also add pot pot because she would fart a lot as a kid. So I didn't blow up her spot like that, but like yeah. So there was always the doubles, like there's always like two twos. Unfortunately, my name was very short, so my dad would call me like Abu, from the monkey in the land, but our nicknames go wild. They're you never can tell what they're gonna be.
All I know is pot pot. I hope I don't meet your sister and call her that. It's all good.
Ginger pot.
All right. We have definitely two questions right now. I know everybody else. Don't worry. If anything comes to you, just pop it in. But thank you, Alice, for providing some questions. So, Alice says in her first question, I purchased your book and only tried the calamansi muffins. Is there such a thing as calamansi jam or curd? Have you ever made it?
Oh my god, yeah, there's definitely calamansi like marmalade. If you haven't actually made like just basically reduced down like calamansi and like sugar. I know that like sometimes with calamansi because they're so small, if you have the fresh little limes, it's so much work. But there's actually a really great brand called Pika Pika. And they make calamansi marmalade that's really really good. Even though I know you're not gonna make, it'll be a shortcut, but they're also great Filipino owned brands to support too.
Awesome. And what I loved about the book was that you give people options to, it's not really shortcuts, but if you need to
Yeah.
save time and
No,
extra yeah, you go for it.
do it.
Alice also says in another one for the matami na bao.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Matamis na bao, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like you said, you use fresh pandan leaves. Can dried leaves be used?
Yeah, I think you can definitely use them and then make sure to like take them out because you're not gonna like in theory eat or consume them. They're just there for the aromatics and flavor. So you can definitely try using them. I want to say in my experience, like if it's the same kind of thing as like dried bay leaves versus fresh bay leaves, I usually have to use a bit more dried to get the same equivalent flavor than fresh. So I would experiment with like the quantities of how much dried leaves you'd use.
Good. Um, Letitia, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, but you have a great question. So first of all, I'd like to say how beautiful the book looks. So aesthetically pleasing, and I bet your treats are delicious too. They look amazing. I'm definitely adding this to my reading list. I am honestly in a very similar position as Abby. I am currently in university doing media studies. I am, however, deeply passionate about baking. The treats that I make and the recipes that I polish are from my home country and culture. I am Eastern European. I have a dream of opening my own bakery in North America, and sometimes I feel like I'm just being silly that I will never be a baker. This happens when something goes wrong in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever felt that too? What
Oh
advice would you have for me or anybody else? What has been the hardest period of your baking career so far? And is there a way that you can try your treats somewhere and somehow? And
Oh wow,
we're all asking that. There's a lot of
that's
questions,
great.
but yeah, maybe some encouraging words for for her and everybody else who might be considering this a pathway.
Yeah, I know that like even I don't have a bakery myself, unfortunately. And it's one of those things where I know it is kind of one of those things that feels like a pipe dream because there's so much logistical things that go into it, like licenses and money for equipment and all these things that people do to, have their own bakeries and wherever they live. But I will say, like, whatever capacity that you can bake in, I think it will help you towards your goal. And in my ways, I always did kind of like treat boxes, like pickups in the park, and I did from home, kind of like cottage like industry type things. And I know a lot of people who have thrived using their own kitchens as their bakeries. And then eventually maybe they do a Kickstarter and they can actually fund like having their own bakery. And so I hope you don't feel like deterred by like a bad bake that went terrible. It says that you're a bad baker. That's totally not true. I think in my own career, as a baker, even a home baker recreationally, I think that I've gotten into lulls of time where I'm like, I don't want to be in the kitchen at all. I don't want to cook. I don't want to bake. And I think those are the periods where I'm like, do I even like food at all? Or like, what's wrong? And I do think that those are the periods where I'm like, I think I'm just burned out and tired. And so I really think it's important to like take breaks when you need to take breaks, but also don't let that be a reflection of like your quality of baker that you are. Because like just because you didn't bake for months at a time doesn't make you like, it's one of those things where you just hop on the bike and you're like can do it again, and you're just like, you pick it up where you left off. And at the same time you're very able to kind of get better and better as you keep going. So to answer the second part of the question about where you can get my baked goods and everything, honestly, unfortunately, unless you live in New York, which is sometimes I'll do pop-ups at restaurants once in a while, because I'm working a full-time job at the same time, it's very much harder for me to like get out of work and to do this, but I will occasionally be doing things. But otherwise, the recipes, I always say like I made 75 recipes for everyone else to make, so I'm really excited. Every time it feels like when someone posts a recipe that they made for my book, it's like I'm with you in the kitchen. But also just like feel free to DM me. People have asked me questions before, and some things have sometimes gone wrong, and I'm like, oh wait, we can course correct, or maybe try that again another time. But yeah, just feel free to reach out anytime. I'm here for you and every aspiring like baker that wants to do it.
That's right, folks. If you don't have Instagram, get it now. Just to hit up Abby, and she'll help you out. Kathy says, "How did you get your inspiration for your calamansi patis, shortbread?"
Shortbread. Yeah, no, I think that a lot of the times when I want to implement kind of umami things too, sometimes the easiest way I think of that is sometimes caramels, just because like there's a bitterness in the caramel that also helps accent the like the savoriness of whatever you're adding to it. So I've seen a lot of like fish sauce caramel, a lot of people put miso a lot in caramel too, so I've seen that plenty of times. But for the calamansi patis, I think it was more so just like the way that traditionally all Filipino condiments are kind of like sausawan is what it's called in Tagalog, but it's basically like every time we'd have like fish and steamed vegetables and rice, I would always kind of like have calamansi and patis or calamansi and soy sauce. And so I thought naturally like, let's just put that in a glaze together, it's so easy. And so like honestly, there's more so a thinking of like what would taste good together, I hope, or like already tasted good in my eyes, but just like add more sugar and kind of put that as a glaze where it's not overwhelming your palate, I hope. So I think that was the inspiration of the dish itself, just like as a condiment, it tastes good together.
Use a small brush, very art
Yes.
brush, not a thick brush, ladling it all over.
Oh no, that'd be a lot of patis, honestly.
We'll smell it from Kathy also throws in, which is your favorite dessert and which is your most popular recipe?
My favorite dessert. Okay, that's two separate questions because honestly sometimes it's not the same. Obviously the most popular recipe probably right now is the adobo chocolate chip cookies we talked about earlier. But my favorite dessert that I think I would eat again and again and again would be, I'd have to say it's like there's like these red velvet sylvanas in the book, and sylvanas are kind of like cashew meringue cookie sandwiches that are sandwiched usually by French buttercream, but this one is like a southern inspired one by red velvet, of course. So there's cream cheese frosting, and also there's like a little bit of cocoa powder into like the cashew meringue part. So it's just like really yummy, like frozen. It's frozen and it's crunchy. It has like it's chewy a little bit. It's sweet but salty because of the cream cheese and tangy. So it's mostly like a really good just like treat, and I don't think a lot of people make it. So I hope some more people will make it now that I say it's one of my favorite recipes.
Well, definitely we're gonna have to try that. I think my visually and something I eat often is the polvoron. So seeing your version of polvoron, I was like, I gotta try that. Hopefully, if I had the molds,
No, that's how you can just compress, and like whatever you can use to compress something works too. Like I just say fondant cutters because I know a lot of people can get that from like Wilton or like a Michaels or something. So that's my go-to.
Well, aesthetically pleasing in the book. So, but I'll find a regular mold at home. I don't see it. Oh, Kathy, you definitely want the Abby to answer these. That's good. Also, which of your recipes do you think Danny should
Danny should what?
Attempt. What?
Attempt. Okay.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks so
much. I put you in the kitchen for over 24 hours.
All right. Yes. All right. Here's a challenge for myself. Okay.
if you wanted to be brave and do something very challenging, I would say the Hala Hala Baked Alaska on the cover is always the biggest, I feel like the longest time, but not necessarily the hardest recipe, just the most steps. So if you break it up in over a couple days, like it is honestly pretty feasible. But there's store-bought ice cream, so you don't have to make the ice cream from scratch or anything. But it is a very like delicious like baked Alaska that I really like to eat. So
Kathy said, which recipe do you think Danny should attempt? Not the hardest recipe with many steps.
I think so highly of you, so I think you're capable of doing it, obviously.
I will take that. And the eagle is only driven this far from now for me to attempt. Stay tuned to my social media. I will post results. Thanks, Kathy, and also you. Okay, well, if I have some extra, we're sharing. I'll post it. You'll see it. Maybe this is where I'll close it off with. You know, I think we've spoken a lot about, you know, what drives you, you know, about heritage and how you cook and who you cook for out of love. You know, I think that that's is shown and is felt in the book. Um, I I also think of that sometimes people who live in this world of authentic, you know, sometimes can't accept change, or are unwilling to try, you know, to experience something new. Like, you know, they're sometimes stuck in a mind frame of what's good. And I think some of the classic recipes are always gonna be good, you know. But I also think as adventurous as we are now in this time where, you know, the world's sort of opened up, we want to experience things, we want to travel more, we want to be a little bit adventurous. I mean, how much sourdough bread can we make? You know,
in the Bay Area a lot, especially in San Francisco.
Yeah, well, that was the easy answer. Anywhere else in the world, but yeah, I mean, yeah, Bay Area. You're right. You're right. So what do you say to what the idea of authenticity, in terms of your respects to it, but also why you think it's good to try new things and show them? Because I'm seeing that in Southeast Asian cuisine, especially with new pop-ups, new restaurants. And it's not my mama's Vietnamese food for sure. And my mom's always looks at it when I buy it for her. She goes, "What's this?" I'm like, "Ma, it's a banh mi." It's like, "No, that's not a banh mi." But I'm like, just try it, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just want your feelings on, you know, where we go from here, for all our culturally ethnic foods, and the adventure of helping other people try it too.
I think it's hard because authenticity is usually tied to old-fashioned things or how things are traditionally done. And when I think about like when I try to be authentic about what I make and what I dress and who I am, I think it's like for me, I know that like what I'm making isn't what my parents are making. What I grew up with, definitely not exactly the same, or maybe not even close. But I do think that there's like elements of, yeah, where you've lived and where you've gone, where you can make something completely new but kind of familiar. And I think that's authentic to your personal lived experience, but also gives credit to hopefully wherever you traveled or wherever you got some of those ideas from. And that's where kind of like true innovation kind of happens, is like being true to kind of your point of view and not thinking of what's on trend or what has always been done, because that is a proven success. And so I really think of just like authenticity is like paving the way for yourself and what makes sense for you. And with also giving cultural respect and due diligence to kind of do that for other people, because that's where it gets kind of tricky when it's like white people co-opting your culture and all that stuff. And so I just hope for people to kind of, yeah, go forward with an open mind and to still kind of enjoy all aspects and spectrums of the food that you love, whether it is, again, like the traditional banh mi that is maybe $2 at a certain mom and pop shop. Yeah. But just know that like at the same time, like a sit down restaurant with like deconstructed banh mi can still taste as good or even close to it, even though it's not necessarily like the same experience that you had growing up. It doesn't dilute its importance. And so yeah, I hope everyone is excited about all ways that food can come together and to bring people together. Because I still see value in like places that are, you know, the places where we call them toro toro places, because it's like you point and that's what the food is. It's just like in the banquet kind of style platters. And that food is so good too. And it's not that the new modern restaurants are taking over and that's all that people see of, fill in the blank here kind of food. But it's just showing that we have all different points of views and perspectives that are very valuable. So I really hope that everyone views themselves as valuable enough to express completely and without judgment, because I think that's probably the hardest part, honestly, is like starting something is, and that's, I think I talked about earlier, is just being perceived and being judged. And honestly, maybe it's that part is the scariest. So I hope everyone can kind of hopefully tune out the noise when it's not constructive, because constructive criticism is good, but not the stuff that is just like, oh, it sucks because it's not how my mom made it. It just doesn't help the conversation move forward.
Turn off all comments, people.
Turn off. I see no. Yeah.
Volume down. No
all the haters. Sorry.
All the haters. I can't see you.
I can't see you.
Abby, this has been a great interview. This has been a great talk. The Santa Clara City Library, I also feel like, thank you for blessing us. Thank you for blessing our great audience who are here now and also going to be watching later. We're proud of you, sister of San Jose and South Bay and South Bay area. I love you too. Yeah.
I'll see y'all at Great America one of these days.
As I keep praying, they continue to keep it going.
Every day I worry about it, honestly. And the San Jose flea market. Okay, hopefully it's a PSA to save the flea market, save Great America,
save the flea market, save Great America, save our great institutions of the South Bay.
Yes.
But we'll be on the lookout for you on your next project. And also, if you ever decide to do a pop-up, please let us know in our area. We will be there. We got cash. We're ready. Or
Breaking Waters is gone. I'm sorry, I'm reading the Q&As right now. I'm so
oh shoot. Yeah. Oh, you didn't hear about that, huh?
No,
yeah.
When did that close?
They announced it like last month. Yeah.
Okay, well, sorry on this negative, sad note.
I know. Well,
that's why we have to save everything else that is still, and the Chuck E. Cheese, the original Chuck E. Cheese in San Jose has to be saved.
Please buy your tokens and the pizza, please. Keep the rat alive. All right.
Thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, everybody, have a great evening. Check out Mayumu. Please check it out. Try out the recipes. I have to try out the recipe now. I've been challenged. But we'll catch you on the next one. We'll hope to see you in the library. And if anything else, Abby, we'll catch you later.
Thank you so much. Take care.